A new patch just dropped, and so I'm going to be covering everything that happened along with just a general new tier list since I haven't done one for a while. This is for the beginning tiers of the game, so it still applies for higher tiers, but a lot of what I will say will rely a lot on Ultra League and below to sort of help newer players climb as high as they can in the game. I'm going to be going through this quite quickly, so if you want me to cover any Pokemon individually in more detail, let me know and then I'll make a video on it someday. In terms of what was covered in the last patch, I'm going to be doing attackers first, everything in the order as seen here. I don't know why Clefable is a defender in this part, but we'll just run with it. Starting off with Miraidon, which I'm going to stick in the A+ tier. He did just get a nerf in 2 consecutive patches, but I still feel like, especially for lower levels of the game, he's still really good, and so I definitely recommend picking him if you do like the look of him. And then lined up we have pretty much all of the majors, and so I'm going to go through them all quite quickly. I believe that's all of them, but there's a quick note I'd like to say. Gardevoir is very, very good. If you can get a team that coordinates with your Unite moves, so if you wanted, say, Gardevoir Unite and then Gyarados or Meowscarada, Zacian, there's a lot of them that combine really well with this Unite move to just get their whole team into one spot for a big burst damage. If you can coordinate that with your team, you'll win the fight just like that, which makes it all the more crucial to make sure you have Gardevoir's Unite move for the Rayquaza fight. All the rest of them I'll go over quite quickly. Pikachu got a buff, is pretty decent. Glaceon is slept on right now. I really think Icy Wind is probably better right now, but you could still run the Icicle Spear build. Just because it got a nerf doesn't mean it's not good. You could still definitely use it. Chandelure did just get a buff, and it was already pretty good to begin with. These two are placed above. Again, Delphox got a buff, already was good. Espeon is really good in the bottom lane. As long as you have someone with XP share or just a general defender or supporter with you in that lane, I feel like you can still succeed very, 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 very easily. Venusaur is going to go in the A+, because honestly, you can't be stopped with this Pokemon. If you get ahead, you win the game. Solar Beam and Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb if you've got no one that can run you down on the enemy team, but Giga Drain if you have someone like Leafeon or a Zoroark or a Meowscarada that will chase you down. You can have Giga Drain to make sure you don't go down easily at all, really. And Solar Beam just puts so much like ranged pressure. It's so good. Decidueye is going to be B, because I feel like if you don't stay behind your team, you don't work with your team enough in these lower ranks, you're just going to pop like a balloon just like that. It's too easy to take him out. I feel like if you want him to succeed in the lower ranks, you kind of have to work with your team a lot more than you do other Pokemon. So especially in solo queue, he's a lot harder. Same goes for Inteleon. As long as you can make them work, these two right here you can do really well with, but I feel like there's too much of a skill curve in these Pokemon for it to really work in these lower ranks. Greninja and Cinderace are going to go in B, because I feel like they're better than what gets let on. They get a very like bad reputation because a lot of bad players, let's say, pick them up and they run poor items, they don't play how they're supposed to. If you play in the central area with these Pokemon, you can do really well. Especially with Cinderace's Unite move, just sniping the Rayquaza. Just sit back and just don't engage really in the Rayquaza fight at all, and just snipe it as soon as the enemy team or anyone tries to get it, and secure it for your team and win the game. Duraludon is going to go a bit higher than the other auto attackers, so I'm going to also put Dragapult up here at the same time. Dragapult with his ability, if you just keep stacking and stacking your ability up, as soon as you get to 10, you just kill everything that you see. It's ridiculous. Mewtwo Y is very, very good, but I'm going to put him in A for these lower ranks. He would definitely be up here in A to S, but I feel like for the lower rank players, it's just not really different. You've kind of got to stay within a good range. I feel like people who play Mewtwo in these lower ranks don't really keep to that range. But honestly, if you know what you're doing, you'll go up the ranks very quickly. You wouldn't stay in the lower ranks with Mewtwo Y. That's just simple. I'll do these two at the same time. Sylveon is very underrated. I feel like you can succeed very well. Ninetales is decent. You'd still pick it over some other Pokemon, but it's still very good. Mew is going to go in C, because if you know what you're doing, you do very well. But if you don't, you do absolutely awful. I'm so sorry. It's very hard to learn this Pokemon, so I feel like until you get better at the game, I would just recommend picking any of these ones instead. Tyranitar, no matter what you say, is still very, very good. I'm so glad this Pokemon got buffs. He was so just unbearably useless in these lower games. I feel like as a Tyranitar player myself, I'm very grateful for these buffs, and he's finally useful rather than being in just very bottom levels of the game. Garchomp, also slept on. I feel like he's very good. Both builds are very good right now. You can succeed with him either way. Charizard did just get a buff. I'm going to be putting him in B. This is my prediction. We don't know for certain yet, but I feel like he is going to be a lot better with the Flare Blitz and Fire Punch build, especially with that buff to the Unite move. I'm trying to make this as speedy of a tier list as I can. Champ really does need some buffs. He doesn't really do anything right now. As long as you know what you're doing, which sort of goes for every Pokemon, which is why I'm still keeping them down here, then you'll do well, but otherwise I would just recommend picking any other all-rounder really. Same goes for Aegislash. These two here, Mew and Aegislash, and probably some more coming up later, are very hard to learn, so I feel like if you want to rank up, you kind of have to pick one of the easier Pokemon for now, and then learn the harder ones later once you finally know what you're doing. Water Bear is finally not god-awful, thank God. I think he's probably going to get bumped up to B tier for the lower tiers of the game. Obviously, he might not be as good still in like Master Rank and very high Master, Pro Leagues, whatever, but I feel like Ultra and below, he's still very good. These buffs were a godsend. I might actually pick him up now, but he was just so useless before, and I'm just so glad that he's finally got a buff. Dark Bear is going to go in the same place for the same sort of reasons. He didn't get a buff, but I feel like he's underrated, to be honest. You should really be playing these Pokemon a bit more. But if you are going to play him, please, please, please play him in the central area. He's just not good at all in lane. His early game is absolutely awful. Lucario, another underrated pick. Stacking on this Pokemon is very, very good. If you can get your 6 stacks in your lane, just control that lane, you just climb the levels very, very quickly. Azumarill, just kind of in the middle right now. Doesn't really do anything different, but if you like Azumarill, play it. Moving on, Dragonite. I made a guide about him the other day because he's honestly very underrated in the lower levels of the game. High levels like Masters and such, I probably would bump him down a bit, but I feel like he might be A. Yeah, let's put him A. Mewtwo X, I will put in the A tier. Same sort of reasons as Mewtwo Y, except I feel like Mewtwo Y is a lot better anyway, but you just need to learn how to play him properly in these lower tiers of the game to actually succeed. But I feel like Mewtwo X is a bit worse, but just sort of a lot easier to play. Blaziken's going in A+ right now. He's very, very good, very underrated. Well, in fact, I wouldn't even say he's underrated. I think people sort of agree right now that he's very good. Same goes for Mimikyu, really. The Unite move is just ridiculous. You just take someone completely out of the fight. Metagross goes in the same sort of sphere as Azumarill. Doesn't really do anything in particular, but I feel like he's still really good. He's probably a pretty good pickup. Gyarados, don't play him in the central area and you will succeed. He's very good. Both builds right now, Waterfall, Dragon Breath, all of them, they're just really good. Scizor is very different from me. I feel like he's probably more down here in like Masters, but where I see him the most in these lower leagues, he's definitely higher up, possibly even A+. Just because of the survivability, like the health he gets from his bullet punches, he just does not die, and any 1v1 you take with this Pokemon in lower ranks of the game, you just lose. Phalanx did just get a nerf. I feel like he was probably S tier before. I might bump him down to A+. I still feel like he's going to be very good with a no retreat build, but he's definitely been bumped down a peg from now. Ceruledge is another Pokemon that wasn't in the game when I made my last tier list, but I feel like he was probably down here before but he's got so many buffs now that I feel like he's a pretty solid pick. I don't know for certain, but I feel like Psycho Cut might still be the best build. But judging by the buffs, honestly, Bitter Blade could actually be pretty decent now. Zarina probably falls in the same category as these two here. Very hard to play, but as soon as you know what you're doing, you'll probably go higher in the game. But honestly, I'd just stick to other Pokemon for now. Buzzwole fell off. Buzzwole fell off quite hard. I feel like he's still A though. He was definitely up here to begin with, but I feel like it's mainly his late game though. Late game, he used to be very, very strong, but now he's only really great in the mid sort of parts of the game. Don't get me wrong, he's still very good, but I'd pick other things at this point. Cypher is more like a speedster, so I would probably rank him with these. But he's not amazing. I'd put him in B right now. And Zacian is going straight in A+. Very, very good. Obviously, EXs, they're just ridiculous. Especially the Unite move, really. I feel like a lot of Zacian just doesn't really get fully understood of how good it really is. Zeraora, same as these, besides Machamp maybe. Just pick something else while you're still understanding the game more. I would probably throw Dodrio in here as well. Maybe a bit higher though, because I feel like Dodrio is a lot easier to learn mechanically than Zoroark. Zoroark's probably the hardest Pokemon to play in the game. Yeah, let's throw him in B. Why not? Gengar, probably tied or just is the worst Pokemon in the game right now, unfortunately. Mainly in the lower tiers of the game. In fact, I'm going to make a new tier. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's just disappointing right now. In the lower tiers of the game, just do not pick this Pokemon. You either do get some good games and you do really well, or you have literally no impact at all. You miss one Dream Eater, you hit the wrong target at the wrong time, and you just pop. You don't do anything. He desperately needs a nerf, but honestly, I'm scared because back in the day, at the start of the game, Gengar was absolutely busted with the Hex Sludge Bomb build, and so I feel like if he gets buffed too much, he's just going to be absolutely overpowered. So honestly, just buff him a tiny bit, but I'd rather him just stay down here, to be honest. Absol, probably in B, very good, but I feel like he just gets outmatched in terms of speedsters. I feel like there's some better speedsters right now. Leafeon is great. I feel like you can play Leafeon in Central, you can play Leafeon in the bottom lane. Leafeon's very good. Honestly, I'm going to throw him in A+. Nothing can really top Tyranitar right now. I feel like he's just very, very good. I might bump a few things up, but I feel like Tyranitar's just on a different league for the most part. Talonflame, probably B. He doesn't really do anything. If there was a B-, he'd probably be in that. There's just better speedsters right now, like Meowscarada, which I'm going to be throwing in A+. The kill power of this Pokemon is just so unmatched in these lower ranks. Just general speedsters. If you can get a higher level, you can stay in front, you will just run away with the game, you win. You just win. Zeraora, same sort of case as Talonflame. There's just better speedsters and they just don't really do anything in this meta right now. Now on to the defenders. Slowbro is going to be our second Pokemon in the S tier. Absolutely busted right now. If there's a lot of attackers on the other team, you just run Scald. If not, you run Surf. Slow Beam is busted. Water Gun in the early game is probably the best secure move. Run this Pokemon with XP share with the partner. In the lane, you will get them to their level 4, their level 5 before the Altarios spawn. Just general, the early game with this Pokemon and the late game with this Pokemon are just brilliant. I feel like definitely the best defender. Goodra is probably going in A tier for the lower tiers of the game. Probably a lot lower for like Masters and such, but Goodra is just an unkillable wall. I don't think anyone really knows how to deal with Goodra in these lower ranks. Definitely an underrated pick for these like lower tiers of the game. Lapras, Honestly, D. He doesn't really do much. He could be in C. In fact, I'll give him C. But I feel like for the role of the defender, especially in Ultra and below, he just doesn't really do anything. Umbreon is in contention for S. I think I'm going to do S. Definitely very good. You can play it as a defender. You can play it as a supporter. Wish is a very, very good healing move. Mean Look, when you're playing with someone you can coordinate with, is very, very good. Style Foul Play is also a very good build if you're just like solo queuing. Honestly, the Pokemon is very good, but I'd still say Slowbro is probably better right now. Crustle is underrated, but I'd still throw him in A. For what he does, he's very good. But I feel like, again, there's just better defenders to pick right now. Same with Mamoswine. He's a lot better than he would be in Masters and such, but I'd still probably throw him in B because he just isn't great, really. Blastoise is still underrated in my opinion. A lot of people have been ranking him quite low, but I'd still say he's probably A. He's still very good for the mechanics of what Blastoise does on the team. But again, there's just better defenders to pick. Tree is probably A+. He did get a few nerfs. I feel like he has dropped down a bit, but he's still a very good pick. If you like Tree, play Tree. He's still very good. Wigglytuff is just kind of depressing, really. Doesn't really do much. Probably throw it in D. Probably a bit better in like Masters, but for where I'm ranking these Pokemon, he's probably in D. Doesn't really do anything. Greedent, could go in the Gengar tier to be honest, but I feel like he is better than Gengar. But I feel like for the role he has on the team, he just doesn't really fit the defender role. I'm gonna stick him in D, because I think Gengar is just a tier of his own. Snorlax is underrated, really. If there was a B+, I'd throw him in B+, but I don't quite think he's with these three in A tier. Yawn, very good. Heavy Slam, very good. Do not pick Flail, it's so bad. Onto the supporters with defending supporter, apparently. I will stay probably A tier. The healing is still very good, but I feel like other supporters are probably better right now. Mr. Mime has shot up the tier list in recent patches. I'm going to honestly say A+. Barrier Confusion's very good. Psychic Confusion is very good. Power Swap is still very good. Pretty much his whole moveset is good. There's not really anything that Mr. Mime can't really do right now. LD, probably the same. Very good in the early game. Same with Chansey, they have good secure. Eldegoss is a very disruptive supporter. Hooper is good, but I feel like in the lower tiers of the game, people don't really understand Hyperspace Hole. They don't really know how to play with a Hooper. Trick isn't great. I'm gonna say probably low B tier, because just general solo queue and lower tiers of the game just can't play with Hooper. If you can play with a good team of like friends or whatever, you can do so well with Hooper. Sableye, I'm gonna throw in B as well. Same sort of thing. I feel like Sableye players just don't really know how to play Sableye. People sort of just play him as completely separate from the team. I have to go just score as much as I can. I have to just annoy the enemy team, where honestly you could be the most disruptive supporter there is. Just keep confuse raying with your team. The enemy carry just can't really do anything, and I would say if you play him well, he could probably be an A tier. And finally, Comfey, I'm gonna throw in S or A. I feel like if you know who you're playing with, and you know you're playing with a good player or a very strong Pokemon, Comfey is absolutely busted. I hate Comfey with every string of my being, but as much as I hate it, it is very good. If you don't really know who you're playing with, I would say probably A+, but S is probably for me. That's going to be it for now. If you want to learn how to unlock all these Pokemon, then I've got a video up here for you now.